In October 2013, the world was told a victory story. The FBI announced they had shut down Silk Road, the most illegal website ever created. Servers seized, millions confiscated, a mastermind arrested. Headlines declared the dark web dead. But what followed wasn't an ending. October 2nd, 2013. Inside the science fiction section of the Glen Park Public Library in San Francisco, a man named Ross Ulbricht was logged into his laptop, administering a billion-dollar criminal enterprise. He was known online only by his pseudonym, the Dread Pirate Roberts. When plainclothes FBI agents created a diversion and snatched his computer before he could encrypt it, they believed they had done more than just make an arrest. They thought they had cut the head off the Hydra of the dark web. With the servers seized, the Silk Road marketplace went offline instantly. The digital silence was deafening. For years, it had been the untouchable Amazon of narcotics, a sprawling bazaar accessible only through the anonymizing Tor network and fueled by the untraceable promise of Bitcoin. Now, its iconic homepage was replaced with an official seizure notice from the FBI. The shockwave was immediate and brutal. Markets froze. Vendors who had built entire operations around the platform vanished overnight, destroying evidence and fearing a knock on the door. Users panicked, their cryptocurrency wallets, held in the site's escrow, suddenly gone. The forums that remained flickered with fear and confusion. The king was dead. For a brief, triumphant moment, it looked like the system had worked. Law enforcement had proven that no one was truly anonymous, that even the most sophisticated digital fortress could be breached. The prevailing wisdom was that the darknet market experiment was over, a cautionary tale for any who dared to follow in Ulbricht's footsteps. But the internet is not a kingdom, and it does not answer to a single ruler. Then, something unexpected happened. In the vacuum left by Silk Road, a new energy began to coalesce. Within days, displaced users regrouped on hidden forums and encrypted chat channels. The initial panic subsided, replaced by a determined collective effort to rebuild. These forums lit up with activity. Veterans shared knowledge, teaching newcomers about operational security, PGP encryption, and the importance of multi-signature escrow to prevent another catastrophic loss of funds. Backup contacts, established for just such a contingency, were activated. A decentralized network of trust, once implicit, was now being explicitly rebuilt. And the traffic, the lifeblood of this ecosystem, didn't disappear. It simply migrated. New onion addresses were shared, pointing the way to fledgling marketplaces that had been waiting in the wings. The community didn't just want a replacement, they wanted an upgrade. The arrest of Ross Ulbricht had revealed a fundamental truth that law enforcement had overlooked. Silk Road wasn't the dark web. It was only the first successful version, a prototype. Its takedown served not as a deterrent, but as a roadmap, highlighting every vulnerability and every mistake for the next generation of market administrators to learn from. The Hydra hadn't been slain, it had been taught how to grow stronger. The shutdown sent one clear message to criminals. Silk Road showed what was possible. Now fix its mistakes. New markets appeared almost immediately. They were enterprises. The largest was Alphabet. Alphabet made Silk Road look small. More users, more vendors, more drugs, more weapons, more money. At its peak, Alphabet processed hundreds of millions of dollars. This wasn't digital chaos. It was organized crime, optimized. Silk Road made mistakes, and criminals learned from every single one. No ideology, no philosophy, no freedom talk, just profit. Markets adopted stronger encryption, multi-signature escrow systems, decentralized infrastructure, smarter operational security. Bitcoin tracing improved, so criminals shifted to privacy coins. Law enforcement adapted, so markets adapted again. This wasn't a cat-and-mouse game. It was an arms race, and nobody was winning. Then the story took a darker, more complex turn. For years, law enforcement had been playing a frustrating game of whack-a-mole. Every time they seized a darknet market, two more would spring up to take its place, often run by more security-conscious administrators. The cycle was endless, and the victories felt temporary. It became clear that simply shutting down these sites wasn't enough to dismantle the underlying criminal infrastructure. A radical new approach was needed. To truly fight the dark web, governments changed strategy. They decided to move from reactive enforcement to proactive intelligence gathering. The goal was no longer just to make arrests, but to map the entire ecosystem. To identify the high-level vendors, the money launderers, the software developers, and the thousands of buyers who fueled the trade. To do this, they had to get inside. Instead of shutting markets down, they ran them. This is the story of the honeypot, one of the most audacious tactics ever deployed in the war on cybercrime. In one of the most controversial operations ever, a joint task force of international authorities secretly took control of Hansa, one of the largest darknet marketplaces at the time. They didn't just get a warrant for the server, they became the server's new administrators. The timing was surgical. Just as they gained control of Hansa, US authorities publicly seized its main competitor, Alphabet. Panic ensued. Tens of thousands of displaced vendors and buyers, desperate for a new platform, flooded onto the next biggest site they trusted, Hansa. They had no idea they were running from one police operation straight into the arms of another. For 27 days, the authorities kept the market online. They didn't warn users, they didn't shut it down. They ran it like a legitimate, if illicit, business. They processed orders, mediated disputes, and even subtly manipulated the site's code to disable security features, like automatically encrypting shipping information. They watched. Every message, every password, every Bitcoin transaction was meticulously recorded. Drug deals happened, money moved, crimes continued, all under the covert supervision of the very agencies meant to prevent them. All while law enforcement collected an unprecedented trove of data, over 10,000 home addresses of buyers, and detailed ledgers on the site's most prolific sellers. It was a catastrophic intelligence failure for the darknet community. The operation was hailed as a stunning success, leading to hundreds of arrests worldwide. But it also marked a profound ethical shift. To stop crime, they had allowed it, facilitated it, and profited from it in the form of gathered intelligence. They had become the monster they were fighting. This raised a terrifying question, one that resonates far beyond the dark web and into our daily digital lives. In the pursuit of security, how much deception is permissible? How far is too far? Where does justice end and mass surveillance begin? While the dark web grew stronger, its first and most infamous kingpin was erased from the world. Ross Ulbricht disappeared into the concrete and steel of the United States penitentiary system. The sentence handed down was staggering: 2 life terms plus 40 years, with no possibility of parole. A digital death sentence for a man who would never again touch a keyboard as a free citizen. The prosecution built its case carefully. There were no murder charges filed. There were no convictions for acts of violence. His conviction was for running a website. But the judge was swayed by allegations that never became formal charges. 6 murder-for-hire plots, which prosecutors claimed showed Ulbricht's willingness to use violence to protect his empire. Though unproven in court, they painted a picture of a man far more sinister than a simple website administrator. In the court of public opinion, the verdict was just as divided. To his supporters, he is a political prisoner, a libertarian idealist, punished for creating a tool of free expression and commerce. They argue his sentence is a grotesque overreach, a warning shot fired by a government terrified of technologies it cannot control. To his critics, he is a reckless criminal mastermind who unleashed a torrent of harm upon the world. They point to the overdoses, the illicit weapons, and the sheer scale of criminality that Silk Road enabled, arguing that as its architect, he bears ultimate responsibility for every consequence. But one thing is undeniable, and it's the great irony of his case. In taking down the king, law enforcement had created a power vacuum. The Hydra grew new heads, each more monstrous than the last. Others ran bigger markets. Sites like Alphabet and Hansa Market dwarfed Silk Road's volume, processing hundreds of millions of dollars. Others made more money, Their founders learned from Ulbricht's mistakes, employing advanced security and laundering techniques, using privacy coins and mixers to hide their fortunes more effectively. And arguably, others caused more damage. The proliferation of fentanyl and potent synthetic opioids on these new markets was a public health crisis that Silk Road had only hinted at. Yet Ulbricht became the symbol, the cautionary tale, the face of the dark web's promise and its peril. He wasn't just the symbol of Silk Road, but of the terrifying, ambiguous line between a revolutionary idea and a criminal conspiracy. He is the ghost in the machine, a permanent resident of the prison the internet helped to build, and a constant reminder of what happens when a digital frontier becomes a legal battleground. Today, the dark web still exists. Markets rise, markets fall, new platforms emerge, crypto is tracked, privacy tools evolve, governments watch more closely than ever. But Silk Road proved something permanent. You can shut down a website, you can arrest a person, but you cannot delete an idea. Silk Road didn't fail. It succeeded. Too well. It showed the world what anonymous systems could do. And once that door opened, it never closed. Silk Road was shut down. But the market, it never stopped.